Hello, welcome to another episode of The Board. I am Gavin Coughlin and I am an Agile coach here at Boost. I'm joined by Paul Flewelling with his famous cup of tea.
My trademark cup of tea.
Yeah.
I'm also an Agile coach here at Boost.
Mm-hmm. So today we have a number of topics that we'd like to talk about. It's going to be a shorter show than usual, about 15 minutes. What would you like to start with today, Paul?
Well, I just thought I'd like to mention that we're running two courses, one next week and one the week after, which I'm fairly excited about. I'll be co-training with Nathan. The first course is called Leading the Lean Agile Enterprise with the Scaled Agile Framework. It's a bit of a mouthful, but Leading Safe, they shorten it to Leading Safe. It's targeted at executives and managers and change agents who would like to lead an organisation through a scaled agile transformation.
Cool.
And the second course the following week is the ScrumXP course, which for all intents and purposes is very similar to the CSM course that the Scrum Alliance do. It's targeted at team members. It focuses on agile and lean underpinnings of Scrum, and it also looks at XP technical practices and so on. It's a really good course, 2 days, some really good activities in both.
And that's the 9th and 10th of December. If you're watching this on YouTube in the future, these courses are now in the past.
That's right.
So it's worth remembering that.
Leading Safe is next week.
Yeah, 4th and 5th of December.
4th and 5th, and ScrumXP 9th and 11th.
Yeah, and one thing I do like about that ScrumXP course is that it does cover basically the same material as the CSM course, but also talks a little bit more about how you actually communicate within an organisation and stuff like that. So it's a really good course. And so today, I don't know, because we're going to base a few topics on the show on our Scrunch Lunch. Yesterday we had our Scrunch Lunch, which we do once a month, where we get a group of people, Scrum practitioners from around Wellington, to discuss some issues that they're having around Agile or Scrum. It's a little informal lunch. It's really good. We get really good people showing up.
Someone floated the idea yesterday that we take the Scrunch Lunch on the road, and maybe we have one across town. And so we maybe have a different location for Scrunch Lunch, and we go to meet people on the road, so to speak.
I think actually that's a really good idea, because obviously here in Wellington, a lot of government people working, and we work just a little bit out of the centre of that, so that could be a good idea. Let's take Scrunch on the road.
Scrunch on the road. Yeah. Anyway, so to our topics for today. I mean, I think the first one we were going to talk about was portfolio prioritisation. Yeah,
and that's, I mean, you're the expert on that, because I would call you the scaling expert here. So do you want to talk a little bit about that, how you do, because we were talking to somebody yesterday who had problems feeding work through to the teams.
That's right.
From the portfolio level, there's either delays, so the team would finish a project and there'd be a delay getting work to them.
That's right.
Or else
the stories weren't ready, or the epics, weren't ready to be worked on.
Yeah, so the team
and the portfolio team were changing the ground under the feet of the teams by saying, actually, we're not going to work on that portfolio item just now. We'll put something else in place. So it's an interesting one. In the scaled agile approach, there's a portfolio Kanban, which I believe this organisation is using, and it's a portfolio Kanban which has four stages. It's a little bit more complex than that. The first stage is the funnel, which is where all of the items from the portfolio investment theme essentially come in. They're very undefined at this stage, and they get triaged essentially.
So they're basically just ideas at this point.
They're ideas, and they get triaged. They get some idea of business value, effort, size of effort, and alignment to the investment theme that it originated from. So that's the initial stages. So there's a little bit of information put to these epics. There's the beginning, basically the beginning of the process. The next stage, basically the second column of the portfolio Kanban. There's a business analyst or somebody at that level will pick up an epic and work on it. It could be a business analyst or a member of the architecture team, or even a team member. Someone who's got an interest in that epic, or a vested interest in that epic, will pick up the epic and do some refinement work. They will look at different solutions that are possible. They'll talk to various team members, be that architecture or team level. They will flesh out the epic so that and basically give it a better estimate of some more detail and a better estimate, and that's essentially passed on to once that's done and the epic has been given more detail. It's passed on to a portfolio management team, whoever that might be, usually a committee of people from different levels, who will determine if that epic is worth working on, or is something that the that the organisation wants to give a priority to. And once they're given priorities, they're moved into the portfolio backlog, ready to be worked on by the program level. So these are epics at this stage. They're epics in terms of like they're thousands of points, thousands of story points in size, and the epics are prioritised in business value order.
And then they're pulled through into the program level when they're ready to work on them. Right. And then the program level breaks these epics down into stories and features.
Into features at that level. And then features will get broken down into stories.
Okay,
and pass through to the teams.
Okay, that makes sense, and I can see how that would sort of keep the flow of work going, because you'd have a backlog there basically at all times, prioritized backlog, so that makes a lot of sense.
And so I think some of the things that we didn't talk about it in detail, but not being on the ground in this organisation, I wasn't too sure what was happening for them. But I think there's some things that I would look at immediately would be the really obvious things. Is this work being made visible at the portfolio level, i.e. have they got the epics up on the wall? Can you see who's assigned to each epic? Who's working on what stage is that epic at in the system, in the Kanban system, and so on. And then the other question I'd have is, how are the team that are responsible for the epic Kanban, the portfolio Kanban, coordinating their work?
I'd be interested to hear what they figure out, because they, as an organisation, seem pretty committed to working in this way. So I would like to hear what they come up with.
Absolutely. But I imagine that if it's not visible, that's the obvious thing to do, I think. So everyone knows what everybody else is working on. Everyone knows at what stage a particular epic is at, and if it's got priority, then it should be given. It should be moved through the Kanban system as quickly as possible.
Something else we talked about yesterday is something that you brought up, actually, which is how to create a team which feels like they have collective ownership over every item that they work on, and just want to touch quickly on that.
This actually came from something that you mentioned, which was silos, teams that are working on the same product, but different teams working on the same product in silos, and so the team's not really the bigger team, the wider team isn't working as a team. It felt from what you were describing.
Well, so the thing that I brought up was teams working in silos, and I just came across somebody recently, and they do have one team working in a building, a software team, and then somewhere else in a different location, a hardware team working together, and then they have a team of testers as well. And all these teams are very, very separate, and there's no communication between these teams, so they just hand off their work and that's it. And there's a lot of problems at the moment. They aren't really producing anything, and they're all these different teams are passing the blame amongst each other and at each other, and the morale seems to be terribly, terribly low.
And I described a similar situation where I was a developer on a team, and we had a separate testing team, and so we passed it over. Once we'd completed our development work, we'd pass it over for testing, and the testing team were rewarded on the number of defects that they found,
which is nuts.
And so they were sitting right next to us and whooping and hollering every time they found a defect. And when they got to the 100 defects, they would have a morning tea given to them and so on, and we're sitting there not invited to their morning tea, feeling really demoralised, because we've got they had various bells and air horns and things that they sounded when they, depending on what boundary they crossed in terms of the number of defects that they'd found. And it was all, I mean, good on those guys for, it's hard work testing. I know it's hard work testing. And so good on them for, motivating their team. Unfortunately, they were completely demotivating us at the same time.
Oh, exactly, and that's really not working together.
No.
And having you guys, but at least you were co-located. But obviously, if they're sending off air horns when they reach 100 bugs, as if that's a fantastic thing, it's a terrible way to.
So that's when I heard your description of the silo team approach for one product. That's when I started thinking, well, maybe collective ownership is the way to drive that.
Yeah, and it just emphasizes to me the importance of, well, I suppose that one of the Agile principles, interactions and individuals over processes and tools. It doesn't matter what processes and tools you have in place. If those people aren't communicating and working together, everything's going to fall apart, and it's going to be detrimental to the quality of the product, detrimental to releasing that product, and very detrimental to the morale of the team as well.
Absolutely.
And whatever you can do, however you want to make it work, get those people working together, get them communicating and doing stuff face to face.
Yeah, I would coach the organisation from above to say to the teams, look, this is your product. You own this product. You guys, I know it's a hardware and software effort and a testing effort, but collectively, what your customer or client sees is the whole, is the thing, and the quality of that product is all down to you. And ask them, what can we do to help you, develop a higher quality product.
And it's a dangerous situation because the lower morale goes, the more people who are going to leave get burned out and leave.
That's
and
right.
It's just going to be a horrible vicious circle, really.
Yeah. So they've really got to stop that blame game where they're pointing fingers at other teams and saying it's them.
Yeah.
They've really got to work on this as a, collectively. It's a team of teams.
And they seem to. That's what they want.
Yeah.
That's what they want, and that's what the teams want. You can see, you can feel it, and it's just up to the people who can make that happen to let it happen, really. So
I feel really excited when I come across those kind of situations because it's so easy to change.
Yeah.
Some small things can really change the way that those teams work together, and they will get a much better result.
Yeah, exactly.
And once you get one thing that makes it so obviously different, the team will snowball, or the teams will snowball
that's right.
into change.
And this sort of touches on another topic that came up at our scrunch, which is if you go into a company and they say we want to work in an agile way, and there's certainly, maybe the team wants to, but management doesn't.
Yeah.
And if you go in there to help them, what happens if they actually turn out to be completely resistant to change? They say, well, actually, we can't make that difference. We can't co-locate these teams. We can't prioritize because everything's equally as important. If they're completely resistant to all your suggestions and what you've been brought on board to help them with, what do you do in that situation?
It's an interesting question. And so there's if you read Mike Cohn's book Succeeding with Agile, he recommends two approaches, and one is to drive from the top down. We want to be agile, the organisation wants to be agile, and therefore we will be doing this. And so to a certain extent the teams have no choice, but then you have to make it clear to the teams that they have responsibility at their level to make the changes. It's, they won't get told what to do on a day in, day out basis. They have to be responsible for their part, and then the other approach, of course, is where you change one team. You make a small change to the organisation, and then allow that to overflow. It's a bit like creating a nature reserve.
Yes.
Once you've got the nature reserve up and running, and it starts to overflow into the surrounding area. Yeah. So that kind of approach. I mean, that's what Mike Cohn recommends. More and more, reading around this, especially if you're a large company that wants to transform into an agile way of doing things, it seems obvious the easiest way to do it is as a whole organisation. Transform the entire organisation altogether. We want this. We want to be agile. We've seen and understand the benefits, and just go for the approach where everybody's going to do this. And that's the scaled agile approach. We would train the whole company 2 to 3 weeks. Everybody gets trained at the same time. Executives, management, team all get trained at the same time.
I'd agree with that. I think it's the only way to pull that off successfully, because it's not an easy thing to do, and I think people want to do it people want it to be easy, which is a natural.
It's a question of maybe. I know it might take some convincing for people to realise that there's going to be huge cost savings for them if they go to this way of working. There's going to be so much benefit if they go to this way of working, and I know. We do try to help people see that, we encourage them through our own transformation and case studies of people that we've worked with and so on. And I understand it's a leap to a certain extent, but the cost savings and the benefits of working this way are huge.
And there's nothing more satisfying than helping a company who's open to changing, and watching them get the benefits of that, because it just improves so much for them. Not only the bottom line, improves the bottom line in terms of profit, but also everything throughout the company, and just the general happiness of everybody who's actually working there.
And I think there's a great book by Ken Schwaber, which I can't quite remember the title of, unfortunately. But it's a Microsoft Press book, and it talks about. It's a book of case studies of work that he's done with organisations, of what worked and what didn't work, of what he saw. Basically, because the worst thing that can happen is someone piecemeal adopts Scrum and it fails, and then they say, "Well, Agile doesn't work." Which is just Agile is a very pragmatic approach to solutions. It's about working collaboratively. It's about transparency. And you could do all of those things with your existing process if you want to, but making it visible is the key thing for an Agile process. And so it's a really interesting read anyway, because Ken Schwaber, I often have it in my head as well. What would Ken Schwaber do when people ask,
WWKS?
What's the next step? And it's the next step. I would say would be to transform your entire organisation based on our experience.
Agreed. So that's all we have time for on this particular episode. Kirstin will be joining us again on the next episode. She's on a boat party at the moment. That's why she couldn't make today's episode.
On a boat. And
she's turned off her phone. We don't know what's going on. So we'll see you next time. And just to remind you, we are doing the Leading Safe course on the 4th and 5th of December, and the ScrumXP course
on the 9th and 10th of December.
And yes, thank you very much for watching.
Thank you.